We're back with America's ambassador to the United Nations, Susan Rice. Thank you very much for staying with us, Ambassador Rice.
Glad to be with you.
I want to understand a point that you made in the last segment about the overall reason why we're there. I asked you, are we there to shore up the Afghan government? And you said we're there to beat al-Qaeda. If the Afghan government doesn't get shored up, if it stays, and these are my words, not yours, as feckless and corrupt as they seem to be right now, can we leave if we have Osama bin Laden's head in a platter and we've done other damage to al-Qaeda? Can we leave with the Afghan government in this bad a shape?
What we seek in Afghanistan is a capacity to build up its ability to provide security throughout the country such that the Taliban is unable to take control. And we seek a government that is able to prevent the return of an al-Qaeda safe haven to Afghanistan.
Is that a stronger government than Afghanistan's ever had in modern times?
It's a government that has built up its security forces to a standard that doesn't yet exist. And that's a large part of the logic for the president's decision to surge 30,000 troops. Those 30,000 will substantially be devoted, not entirely, but substantially be devoted to accelerating with the additional NATO forces that will come in, the training of Afghan national security forces. And you know, one of the reasons for the logic of if we hurry up and get folks in, which we're working to do, additional troops, have them do the training and have them actively partner in the field with the Afghan National Security Forces, which is something that substantially accelerates their ability to come up to speed. Then we will accelerate the time frame in which those forces come online, and we will enhance their quality. And that's why the president has said that in 18 months, 2 years after the first complement of troops that he deployed will have arrived, that we will in fact expect to be able to begin to transition some responsibility for security to Afghan forces in those areas of the country which are most secure.
And will American troops start coming home at that point?
And at the same time, that will enable us to begin to transition our forces out.
And when in that transition, there's been some confusion both last night and today about whether or not that transition and the bringing home of American troops means just the extra 30,000 being sent now, or does it mean we withdraw down below the 70,000 that we've got there now?
What the president said was that we will begin to transition to Afghan forces where they are capable and ready and where security is greatest, such that those forces that we have put in there will, in particular this additional 30,000, will begin the process of withdrawal. Now, I can't tell you which units from which parts of the country.
But overall numbers will fall below what they are now?
They will begin to decline. I can't tell you what point they will get below where they are now and what point they'll get below where they were.
I want to know if we're still going to be there in year 15 of the Afghanistan war.
The president has been extremely clear that this is not an open-ended commitment. We will not be there indefinitely, and that a large part of the logic for indicating that we intend to begin this transition process in 18 months is so that the Afghan people and the Afghan government are empowered and motivated to begin to take responsibility for securing and governing their own countries. It is very important that there be no sense on the part of the Afghans that this is an indefinite commitment.
If we are talking about 400,000 Afghan security forces, which is the number that General McChrystal has used, the cost of supporting that many Afghan security forces dwarfs the entire Afghan national budget. Are we going to be paying the bill for that indefinitely?
Well, first of all, let me say that the review did not result in a specific target number for either the police or the security forces. We are committed to building up the capacity of the Afghan National Army as quickly but with quality as we possibly can, and that's what this additional increment of NATO and U.S. forces will do to a substantial extent.
Okay.
But the number is not fixed in stone.
The Washington Post and the New York Times just reported on a prison allegedly being run by U.S. Special Forces in Afghanistan, and it was a prison unit that nobody knew about before. It was apparently attached to the Bagram Air Base, and the prison we knew about there, but this particular part run by the secretive Special Forces, apparently not making prisoners available to the International Committee of the Red Cross. Is it the policy of the United States to keep some detainees from being seen by the Red Cross, or was this just a mistake?
I'm not intimately involved in that policy or its implementation. I would not be in a position to answer that. I do know that we have always had in this administration a general policy and practice and commitment to giving access to the ICRC to prisoners.
Okay. One question that I know was in your remit, although I bet you're not going to be any more comfortable answering it. Former American officials, including General Jay Garner, Zalmay Khalilzad, Peter Galbraith, are among those who've made news recently for making or being poised to make a lot of money in Iraq now as investors or consultants. When former officials or former Foreign Service officers do business deals that plainly trade on the work they did as American officials, doesn't that undermine every American official working around the world now in these sensitive environments? Doesn't that hurt us?
You know, Rachel, I don't think it undermines every one of the dedicated men and women who serve in our Foreign Service or who serve in our armed forces. We have plenty of people, whether diplomats or former military officers or former government officials, who choose to lobby or choose to make money based on their prior relationships. That's not an uncommon phenomenon. I think in the case, at least one of the cases you've described, I found particularly concerning the report about former Ambassador Galbraith, given his really massive potential interest in Iraq and particularly in Kurdistan, and the fact that it hadn't been disclosed as he did his consulting and his op-eds in places like the New York Times. But those are personal choices. There's nothing, it seems, illegal about what he's said to have done or alleged to have done, and others. People make their own choices. And I insisted that it doesn't in any way undermine the quality or the virtue of the good hard work that our diplomats do every day around the world.
One last question for you. How is it being UN ambassador? Are you enjoying the job?
You know, I am enjoying the job. It's a really good time to represent the United States globally, and the United Nations is really the tip of our engagement with the rest of the world. I'm there with 191 other countries every day, and the leadership that President Obama has provided, the profound change in our policies and our approach to the rest of the world, is felt and reflected and manifested in the United Nations. So it's actually a conducive environment to advance our interests, get done important things that matter to our national security, and to stake out positions that are reflective of our values and our principles. And I am enjoying it.
Boy, that's a very different perspective than former Ambassador John Bolton. Yeah, it's night and day. It's really nice to have you here. Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you.
And U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Susan Rice.